Good morning and welcome to the National Resource Center, Department of Mass Communication and Journalism, Tezpur University, Assam. The topic for today's discussion is cyberspace and different issues and dimensions of cyberspace that we are going to look at through this particular discussion. Now, first of all, let us introduce ourselves to the whole concept of online media, which is related to mass media and which has surfaced in cyberspace. Now, as we all know, the mass media and journalism has to a great extent been impacted by the rise of online media. The online media, that the media which exists through the internet or the World Wide Web, has given birth to the newest form of journalism, that is cyber journalism or online journalism. The speed at which news can be disseminated from a place to another place, and the profound penetration to anyone with a computer and the internet have drastically and greatly increased the quantity and quality of news reports available to the average cyber viewer or average user of cyberspace. In the busy world of today, as you all know, that people prefer to read an e-newspaper rather than going for a printed newspaper because of paucity of time or because of so many other factors which may be responsible for that. Now, in one of the reasons why people prefer to go for an e-newspaper is maybe because it is free of cost, and also there is very only what is needed is to be done is only with a subscription one can have access to that e-newspaper. Moreover, the earlier tradition of writing letters to the editors, this particular tradition is getting gradually replaced by the practice of writing blogs and also the other modes of instant communication and chats and so on and so forth. Now, notwithstanding the beauty of reading a print newspaper, the online media has brought about the paradigm shift altogether and a lot of critical challenges before the traditional the mass media or the traditional journalism as a profession. Unlike the traditional media, there is absolutely no editing being done on the online media that is available to anyone and everyone who ever has access to a computer or the internet, and neither the authenticity of any particular news item is examined by some experts for that matter. Now, the fact remains that the common people have no choice, or they seldom have the time to really look at what is authentic and what is not authentic as so far as the news and views are concerned. But what they can very easily access to is the online media rather than the other media which is conventional and traditional. Similarly, we see the impact of this particular online media or the cyberspace even in case of television industry. Now, people prefer to sit before the internet, or younger generation, they prefer to have a smartphone in their hands with internet connection rather than sitting for hours before a television. That's what used to happen before, kind of earlier days. Now, this again is this particular change that has been brought in with the advent of cyberspace, with the advent of internet and the World Wide Web, has again brought about kind of a lot of other issues to be examined very closely. One of the most important issues so far as the online media and the television is that perhaps what one can do is passive viewer in case of an internet or in case of the cyberspace. That perhaps cannot happen in case of television, because whenever a young boy or a girl he or she uses a mobile phone, he or she has complete control over the phone, over the internet, but he cannot have the similar control over the television. Now, from this discussion, what perhaps the conclusion we can draw here is that the online media has blossomed, it has really expanded in the recent years, and more precisely since 1990s because of the increased pace of cyberspace and or what we also call it the virtual world. We have, for the purpose of demarcation, we have a physical world and we have a virtual world, and the cyberspace we name it as virtual space, and the physical world we call it the physical space. The other way of looking at the cyberspace is also as the click wall against the brick wall. So the cyberspace, we can have access to the cyberspace, we can navigate the part of cyberspace only with the click of the mouse. And very interestingly, the cyberspace is such that when we need to travel in the cyberspace, we can travel to any part of this globe, we can travel to any part of this universe without having a visa or passport for that matter. Now, if we really, knowingly or unknowingly, we all navigate our way around cyberspace every day, downloading information, reading text online, writing and receiving emails, conversing with friends and others via Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, Messenger, so on and so forth. We all have been doing these particular activities in day-to-day life. As I have already narrated to you, cyberspace, unlike the physical space, it has got no specific location, neither has specific boundaries, and cyberspace exists in the whole world. Hence, as I have already kind of pointed out, people with a mouse by single click can visit the whole world without any much problem or without any much kind of hindrances. Now, when we try and examine the very subsequent aspect of cyberspace, what is important for us to understand here is that where is the cyberspace? Now, somebody might say that cyberspace exists in the computer. Now, my question would be, when we make use of a mobile phone, whether the cyberspace exists in a mobile phone or not. Now, the answer is yes, subject to the condition that the mobile phone is connected to the internet. So, the important thing for the purpose of our understanding is that when the computer is linked to the internet, cyberspace is created. Now, a mobile phone also, for the purpose of an interpretation of the Information Technology Act 2000 as amended in 2008, is also a computer. And hence, when a mobile phone is connected to the internet and we can have access to World Wide Web, or we can have access to any site for that purpose, that also becomes a cyberspace. As I have already told you that the cyberspace is widespread, interconnected digital technology, the term now used by technology strategists, security professionals, government, military, industry leaders, entrepreneurs to describe the domain of the global technology environment. Now, when you look at the origin of this particular word, the term cyberspace was coined by the science writer William Gibson in short stories and novels to denote separate space created by the internet. Internet was developed in 1960s by the United States of America for the military purposes. Now, one of the most acceptable definition of this cyberspace is one given by the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology India, which defines it as a complex environment consisting of interaction between people, software services supported by worldwide distribution of information and communication technology. Now, what I have been trying to bring to your kind notice, friends, here is that the whole aspect of a particular computer or a particular device, when it is connected to the internet, what the space which is created, that is the cyberspace. So this needs to be understood, and this needs to be kind of appreciated by one and all. But when a particular computer or device is not connected to the internet, now whether, many of you must have also heard about cybercrime. Now my question would be whether cybercrime can be committed in such a computer which is not connected with the internet. The answer is no. That may be, that we can call it a computer crime, but not a cybercrime. The definition of cybercrime, what is important is that the connection with the internet. If a particular computer is not connected with the internet, that is not cybercrime, that is a computer crime. Now, more recent authors have distilled the definition down to refer to the virtual communication that take place facilitated by internet, and that also includes kind of chat rooms, email, websites, and more in recent years we can add even social networking technologies facilitated by internet to list the cyber destination for communication. And when we look at it very closely, we get an impression that it has brought about, the cyberspace has brought about a complete shift, a complete paradigm shift for human interaction as well as commercial transaction. Now, with this particular background in mind, let us examine some of the legal dimension of cyberspace, because anything that exists, any activity which happens, and this any activity which is something that the humanly created, that has to be regulated by law. We are going to discuss about the regulation aspect of cyberspace and the cybercrime separately, but in this discussion we are just going to look at some of the important dimensions of cyberspace which are legal in nature. Now, before I delve into the issue of legal dimension of cyberspace, let me also inform you that there are in fact different legal dimensions of cyberspace, but we are only going to look at few of them. The first issue that we are going to look at today is the issue of copyright and infringement. Perhaps you all may be having some basic idea of what is that copyright, what actually comprise this copyright. Now, copyright, if we have to define it legally, is a set of exclusive rights granted by law to the creators and producers of form of creative expression such as literary, artistic, musical and cinematographic works. Now, there is some convention called Berne Convention, which is very important for the purpose of having a very important impact on the copyright laws in India. Now, what has happened with the cyberspace, with the widening of the cyberspace, is that it has become a threat to many of the people who have been engaged in some creative activities. Like, as I have already noted, like somebody who writes poem, or somebody who composes music, or somebody who is a producer, somebody who is an actor, somebody who is an author of a particular book. For them, what has happened is that the world has shrinked to such an extent that anybody could have access to anything for that matter. And when anybody could have access to anything for that matter, now the whole kind of danger of something being reproduced has also increased. Now, that's why we call it the two main areas of intellectual property law which have greatly affected, if not transformed, by the advent of the internet age, are the laws of copyright and trademark. Of course, we are not going to look at trademark laws today, because that's something not directly related to it, the journalists and the media professionals or the media educators for that purpose. But what is something that we might come across in our day-to-day professional life is the copyright law. Now, like any other property which may be immovable or movable, that the ownership right should also be vested with a particular person who has, by dint of his or her intellectual capacity or by dint of his or her intellectual pursuits, has created something. That protection to the intellect of that particular person, who may be a composer of a particular song, or who may be a kind of a theater personality, who could be an author of a book, is something that law needed to protect. And in fact, we have a very important law for the Copyright Protection Act in India, which we are not going to look at very seriously today. But then I just wanted to inform you that this copyright and the infringement of copyright has assumed significance in the advent of cyberspace. And there also have been certain movements towards the amendment of the earlier Copyright Act, and this is again a very technical law subject which I am not going to look at today. But what we need to understand is that the infringement of copyright has assumed significance with the advent of cyberspace, the point that I have already briefed you before some time. Now, second important thing that is emerging with the advent of cyberspace is the e-governance. Now, when you look at the regulatory framework of this cyberspace in India, it is the Information Technology Act. And in fact, let me inform you that the present IT Act, which is regulating cyberspace in India, it was primarily brought in for the purpose of e-commerce and e-governance only. So, e-governance certainly is a very, very important area or very, very important dimension of cyberspace, and the e-governance or the electronic governance is the use of range of modern information and communication technology to bring about improvement in service delivery on the part of the government as well as private entities. Now, perhaps all of us are making use of this e-governance in some way or the other. Now, as I have already told you that to bring about an improvement in the service delivery. Now, many of us are also nowadays purchasing our train, railway or the flight tickets over the internet rather than going and making queues in the railway stations or the airports. Now, what is that? That is also a form of e-governance. Now, e-governance is increasingly getting relevant in the corporate sector with the launch of a very important, the ambitious project of Government of India, that is MCA 21, which primarily centers around director identification number and second is the digital signature certificate. Now, these are the aspects to do with the corporate governance, because the whole aspect of e-governance is not only to do with the improved service delivery with the government agencies or entities, but also in similar way to impact upon the corporate sector, because the business needs to be happening with accountability and transparency. The fact that I have told you already, the director identification number or the things like the whole aspect of the digital signature certificate have been created for the purpose of ascertaining that the things are transparent, things are people are accountable for the purpose. Now, with the advent of cyberspace and with the coming of the e-governance, we also find that the old Companies Act has been replaced by the new Companies Act. What we have is now 2013, the new Companies Act. And let me also inform you that the 2013, the Companies Act has got some of the very ambitious clauses, some of the very important clauses which has to do with e-governance. The aspect of e-governance is governing, is something influencing many aspects of our day-to-day life, whether to do with the e-filing, e-ticketing, or to do with the electronic contracts, whether to do with the audit of electronic documents as well as retention of electronic records. Next important legal dimensions which I would like to discuss here is e-commerce. Now, I think all of us, we are making use of something called the ATMs, the credit cards or telephone banking. Now, when we make use of our ATMs or debit card or the credit card, what is that? That is nothing but a particular form of e-commerce. Instead of taking the trouble of going to the bank and making a demand draft, or the trouble of writing a particular check and sending it to a particular recipient, the luxury we have today, we just have to go for online banking. Now, what is that online banking? For the purpose of online banking, we just need to have a particular ID and a password, and we need to have our computers connected to the internet. We can transact every day the huge amount of money that we would like to transact for our business, for our service, or any other purpose. Now, this has made our lives so simpler, so easier, and that is nothing but a form of e-commerce. Now, the amount of business being done electronically has grown tremendously with the spread of internet. The electronic commerce, which is commonly called as e-commerce, is essential, if you have to define it, is the process of buying and selling of services or products over electronic system like the internet and various other computers or technology or networks. It is nothing but exchange of goods and services for value on the internet. And according to World Trade Organization, the 6 main instruments of e-commerce are the telephone, the fax, television, electronic payments, money transfer system, electronic data interchange, and internet. So the e-commerce is something, a thing of the present time, present generation, like e-governance, and we all are knowingly or unknowingly making use of these particular dimensions or making use of these particular facilities in our day-to-day life. The next important thing that which comes in the forefront when it comes to e-commerce is that e-payment or online payment. Now, what is that e-payment and online payment? It's something very interesting that it involves credit card payments or electronic fund transfer. Now, I'm sure many of you have been making use of this particular online payment facility or the e-payment facility, and what you have also perhaps discovered is a system called CVV or the card verification code. And this CVV is a 3-digit code that is calculated from the data on the magnetic strip on the reverse side of a card and cannot be forced by simply knowing the credit card number. So whenever we do any online transaction, what is usually asked on online transaction is the CVV number, or what we call is the card verification value number. That's a 3-digit number. Now, what also happens is that whenever the online transaction happens, a payment gateway is created. A payment gateway is, it's particularly a e-commerce application service provider who is authenticate an online buyer and seller and enables real-time credit card processing online and protects credit card information given over the internet by connecting merchant with the financial institution through which the payment is made. Now, the point I'm trying to bring to your notice is that a complete secure environment is created where it is created in the cyberspace itself. Only when I make use of the online payment facility, I know about it, and to whomever I'm transferring the particular money or to whoever I'm making the particular credit from, that particular person would know about this whole thing, that is transaction that is going on between the two persons. And no other person, irrespective of the fact that we are sending, we are transacting through the cyberspace, and no other person knows about it, because what happens is the process of encryption and decryption. Now, whenever a particular information is given, that is encrypted, and only the intended recipient can have access to it by the process of decryption. So this is how technology has made the whole thing so secure. Even we can go on transacting the course of a huge amount of money, not even course, but huge amount of money through these online payments and the e-payment, and it has become a thing of the present generation or present time. Now, though I am going to look at this aspect in the next discussion as part of the regulatory framework of cyberspace, but let me also inform you that one of the very important dimensions of cyberspace is cybercrime. This is growing in numbers, and this has become a real threat to the present generation, to the present times, and which has replaced the conventional or the traditional crimes. We are going to look at it separately. Now, in this particular discussion today, we have delved into only some of the aspects of, some of the dimensions of the cyberspace. There are more dimensions to it, like the issue of privacy, the issue of domain name disputes, the issue of dispute resolution over the internet. But then the issues that I have discussed today are the issues of primary importance for the media educators, for journalists, and many communicators of tomorrow. Thank you so much.